there, it's Tanya from Azteco. Now, there is a time and place for strategic thought leadership. However, in this video series, we would like to focus on action leadership, the people who are driving Bitcoin consumer adoption by making it easier and simpler to use. And so I'd like to welcome here today, Joe Martin, the independent singer and songwriter from the UK. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tanya.
I really appreciate it. So please tell us more, a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Sure. So I'm an independent singer-songwriter from the UK. I've been doing what I do for the past decade, mainly touring, mainly around the UK, but also Europe, and visit the States every now and again, mainly to Nashville to write and gig. And I've put out a couple of albums. The last album I put out was my first sort of studio album, which was a few years in the making. And so that's me. I've been doing music all my life. But always wanted to be a songwriter. I love it. I love sort of getting my stories across and kind of affecting other people, like through my stories and connecting with them. And recently started weaving Bitcoin into what I do, mainly through this idea of value for value, which is basically putting your music out for free and just asking for people to send sats back your way, because I'm sure, like many other musicians and songwriters will tell you, that the music industry is kind of broken right now, especially for smaller independent artists. It's not really working in our favor. So at least this seems like it could help. Maybe not be a silver bullet or a final solution, but it's definitely better than the current system that's in place. So I'm just really passionate about that and getting the word out to other people.
And so just a little curious, how did you find Bitcoin? What was your first experience like?
So it was a friend of mine that I was gigging with, actually, that kind of brought it to my attention initially. And I didn't sort of shrug it off. I was more curious than anything. But he couldn't really answer a lot of the questions I had, which I found quite frustrating. So I then had to sort of go off on my own and start doing my own research. And, you invest a bit and then you kind of get more curious as you see number go up. And just started asking more and more questions. And then it was only, I'd say, in 2022 that I became public about it, with integrating it into my music, because it was only then that the technology had gotten to a stage where, with the Lightning Network and that kind of thing, where it could be actually useful in a kind of practical sense. When I started seeing apps like the Fountain app, for instance, come along, and podcasters were starting to get sats sent to them for their work, and I thought, well, this is great. This could surely apply to music and every other content form as well. And sure enough, shortly after that, I discovered a platform called Wavelake, and the guys at Wavelake reached out and said, "This is what we're building." And it was just like, well, a no-brainer, because I saw what was happening with the podcasters getting sent sats, and I was like, well, my music's going to be out there anyway for people to listen to for free on YouTube and Spotify. So I thought, well, why not give this a try? This seems like something that could work. And surely enough, people started sending in sats, and I made more on Wavelake than, in a few weeks than I had on Spotify and all these other platforms over many years. So it's a bit of a low bar comparing it to these other platforms, because they really don't pay anything at all. So, but no, I think that just got me hooked, and it kind of gets you to see the bigger picture, and especially, thinking that you could build something really solid on a small but dedicated fan base. That's what's really exciting about this, I think.
And do you think, or how do you think your music could then inspire people to want to start using Bitcoin through this process?
I don't know. I just want to I don't want to preach too much, but I want to lead by example and just show people the data, the numbers, like this is working better than the traditional way of doing things. And I think after a while, that'll be kind of hard to ignore. If you just keep producing stuff, putting it on these platforms, and the results will hopefully speak for themselves. But it is an easy, I say it's an easy sell in the sense that they don't have to do anything really different than they're doing at the moment. They've already put in the work. They've made the content. All you have to do is upload it to this extra platform. Maybe spin yourself up a Noster identity as well, and you're getting sats coming to you. Like for nothing different than you're doing at the moment. So it's very low hanging fruit, I think, for people, but it's just getting people into that mindset because it's just so different from the way they've done things in the past. And like, as soon as you mention the word Bitcoin, people are a bit freaked out sometimes. But I think that is fading away. It's becoming more mainstream. It's, everyone's talking about it more. It's becoming more normalized. So I think the sales pitch for it will just get easier over time, and people will just see it's working for people, and they'll just want a piece of that. It will just hopefully be a no-brainer in the next year or two, hopefully.
And could indie music festivals be a good way to introduce Bitcoin to new audiences?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do want to see more of that. I do want to see more festivals, incorporating that in some way. Maybe just if they had a stage that was a value for value stage, or something, or if it was a free festival. I've always had this idea of a festival being a free festival. And then this will obviously be quite a bit further down the road once people have sats in their wallets and they're used to it. But to go to a stage and watch an act, and the act has the QR code or their lightning address in the back, and if you like what they do, you send them some sats, and it's kind of like that digital tip jar sort of idea. But you could imagine if there were thousands of people watching you and they were all sending like $1 or $2 each, that'd be pretty good, So I definitely think we'll see some experimentation, but again, it's too early. Like, you have all these ideas and things you want to see, and the longer that you're in this space, you've got to learn to manage expectations about how quick things will happen. But I do think we'll start seeing a lot of festivals experiment with this kind of thing. Yeah.
Do you think jazz gigs or small music events could help show how easy Bitcoin payments could be?
Absolutely. I think it'll just work its way into everything eventually. But I could see sometimes at shows you get someone in the audience requesting a song. Sometimes one of your songs. Sometimes, and like maybe it wasn't on the set list, for instance. You could put that song into your set, and they could send you some sats for it. If you tell them your lightning address at the start of the show, or they've got you on the socials, they could just be zapping you after you play that song. Or even like a shout out at a gig. I don't know. There's like lots of possibilities, and for merch as well. I've sold a little bit of merch for sats whenever Bitcoiners have come along to my gigs, and that's very satisfying. I always try to put a discount on that, and then everyone else is like, "Hang on, how are they getting a discount for your CDs and T-shirts?" And I'm like, "Well, it's better money, so." Yeah.
That's a great way to incentivize. And following up on ways to incentivize people, what do you think of rewarding fans with Bitcoin for listening or sharing music?
I think that's a really powerful idea. I know that Wavelake are actually doing this. They're doing like a promotion sort of thing where if you give someone an onboarding link to their app, so I'd have a certain code, a certain URL to onboard that person. They would download the app, and the song that it would walk them through how the app worked, and the song that they would listen to would be my song, and then they would be given some sats that I would put up front as like a promotional thing, right? So instead of like a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, it would be a Wavelake ad, and I would have a balance that I would top up with, say, 100,000 sats, and all the people that I onboarded would get, I don't know, 100 sats each, and I'd onboard 1,000 people until that balance had gone. And they get their first 100 sats from me, and they get onboarded to Wavelake, but then maybe I'm the first artist that they zap back. So, I'm getting some of that back maybe. But I think that's a cool way to get people involved and excited and see how it's all working. Another cool thing, I think, is the idea of split payments. So like someone making a playlist, for instance, they make a killer playlist, and that playlist gets loads of boosts, loads of zaps, and the zaps are flying to all the artists in that playlist. Maybe the curator of that playlist should also get some sats, for making a great mix. And that's a good way to incentivize people to be creating playlists and sharing them as well. So I think we're only scratching the surface of what's really possible with this. It's still early days, but the technology's there, so it is going to happen, and it's just a good driver for adoption, I think, because you can do things that you just could never do in the traditional world. So.
And then who in the music industry would you like to team up in order to promote Bitcoin?
Do you mean like someone that's already orange pilled or just anyone?
Just anyone, really.
Oh, that's a good question. I've not thought about this before, really. Who would I want to team up with? Well, obviously, like, I don't know, one of the more famous people that could get the word out there. I'm not sure. Like some of my biggest. I'm such a huge fan of people like country songwriters like Jason Isbell, Brent Cobb, all the Nashville guys. You know, that's who I look up to. But I don't know, like Theo Katzman, he's a Bitcoiner. I met, I gigged with him in Madeira earlier this year, and he is really orange pilled. He gets it completely. And I'd listened to Wolfpack, the band that he's part of, but I hadn't really listened to much of his stuff. But I'm such a big fan now of his stuff. Like, I'm obsessed. I listen to it all the time. So I think because he already gets it, he'd be a great advocate, great voice for it. And I think he's going to get into it soon. He's just trying to find the right time for when the technology's just right, and then he can expose all his fans to it, because he's got like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of fans. So he's going to be a big asset, I think, for this space. Yeah.
And then following up, you've mentioned this a little bit before, but I'd love it if you could elaborate on how do you see Bitcoin as a way to give artists more financial independence from traditional payment platforms?
From traditional streaming platforms? Oh, I think it's a complete game changer in a way. Firstly, it lets the independent artist actually be in control again of their own destiny. You know, they don't need a label. They don't need to kind of wait for that big deal. They can just get to work. And with those like 1,000 true fans, 5,000 fans, they can build a sustainable career, which is like amazing. It's bringing back hope again for the smaller artist, which is really exciting. And I think these bigger platforms, they're going to have to get their act together. They're going to have to bend the knee and incorporate this somehow, because they're just going to get left behind otherwise. Because artists are going to be like, well, why would I put my music on Apple and Spotify when I can get sats for it over here? I can actually get paid directly from my fans. But in doing that, they would have to give up a lot of control as well. So it's like, are they willing to, attack their bottom line to put the power back in the artist's hands? And I think that's going to be quite revealing if they decide not to do that. It's like, well, are you siding with the artist or your shareholders? Or like, I think they're in a tricky spot with that, because they say they are for the artist, they want to help the artist, but when they have the option to actually do something, the choice to actually make to do something to help the artist, it's going to be quite revealing to see if they actually do it or not. So it's wild.
And then, like, what role do you think Bitcoin could play in funding music projects through direct support from the fans, as you mentioned prior? Are there like any new possibilities that haven't been explored yet on usually we do, for example, festivals or gigs, and just is there something else that was kind of limiting before that now through Bitcoin could then now expand? Like, is there something else that hasn't really been explored because it just didn't make sense?
I don't know. I mean, there's obviously the traditional crowdfunding, like Kickstarter campaign platforms, which like Geyser, for instance, are doing like on a Bitcoin standard. So, I mean, maybe you're saving some like fees and some money that they're taking if you get it directly from your fans. But I like the idea of saying to my fans, look, if you zap me on Wavelake or Fountain or whatever, say 30,000 sats, then you've pretty much bought like what it would cost to buy an actual physical vinyl. So maybe if you zap me that much on there, I'll just send you a vinyl or whatever. That might incentivize people to maybe zap a bit more, thinking they're going to get some merch as well. But I'm not too sure about that. But the thing is, because it's peer-to-peer, you're just more connected with your fans. Like on these platforms, when you're getting zapped in real time, you can see exactly who's zapping you, exactly how much. That's a level of like detail and insight into like the quality of your fans and who they actually are that you never had on these traditional platforms. So you can be very targeted, and you can get a very high fidelity sort of picture of who your top supporters are and where you should be focusing your efforts and sort of nurturing those fan relationships. So, yeah.
And then finally, on that person to person, building relationships like with real people, because your fans are real people. Maybe on the streaming platforms you wouldn't necessarily see them, but once you're in a concert, you can see their faces, you can see their enthusiasm. What do
Yeah.
you hope people will remember about your music and your legacy that you're creating in the industry?
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know, like the music that I do, I don't know if it'll ever be mainstream. I don't think it'll ever be mainstream, and I don't know if I even want it to be. I would be happy with that 1,000 fans that could keep me going through my career. And I think that's what this technology promises, really, so, which is why I'm so excited about it. But if I'm just even known for being one of the first to, dive into this and push this forward and raise awareness, like that, and that in of itself is great. If I can just show other artists that there is a better way, and there's a brighter future ahead, because everyone's just so disillusioned and just so jaded by the way things currently are. I think people need this just for inspiration and hope to be moving forward. So that's what I kind of hope my message is with Bitcoin and music. But I'm just going to keep writing, releasing stuff and writing music that I believe in and hopefully moves other people as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tanya. Appreciate you having me on.